Well, ew. Oxford? No, definitely not. Oh my God. Female serial killer. And yeah, I have a bird's nest on my head, as you can see, because I was really lazy. I'm in my pajamas, so let's just do this thing. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Books Yada Yada. I'm Dina, and I'm going to be doing 3 reviews today and telling you about some news for September, what my plans are going into September for my BookTube channel. Okay, so the first book that we're going to be going over is called Sweet Pea. And this was on my, after my mid-month TBR. No, I'm sorry, my Goodreads tag video. There was a question in there asking, what are you reading now? Or what will you be reading next? And this was the book I was going to be reading next. So I picked up where I left off from there. And, whoa, this book is fantastic, okay? I just have to say that right off the bat. I loved it. It is about a female serial killer, okay? I'm not going to get too much into the details because, again, me and spoilers, you know, right? So basically, all I'm going to say is that this is told from the point of view, first-person point of view, of our protagonist, who's called Rhiannon, aka Sweet Pea. Okay, she has a very troubled past. You could think of her sort of like a cross between Dexter and Mary Poppins. Okay, that's basically how her character came across to me. She is irascible. She's one of those characters that you love, but you kind of can't stand at the same time. But they just, I don't know. C.J. Skuse, the author, just hit the nail right on the head with this book. And as I stated before, something happened to her in her past that sort of made her that way, or maybe it didn't make her that way. Okay, so you decide for yourself because, again, I'm not going to go into the specifics, but it is a fantastic read. It is fast-paced. It is the kind of book that you will read in a day if you have the time because you just don't want to put it down. C.J. Scuse's writing is cutting. It's sharp. It is witty. It is funny. I had a whole bunch of laugh out loud moments with this book because Rhiannon, or Sweet Pea's character, is very funny and she tells it like it is, and you know what she's thinking because the way the book is written is from, again, first person perspective or point of view, and in journal entries, so her diary entries. So you know what she's thinking, even though she may not reflect that side of her personality in her normal day life. You're reading it and you're reading her journal. And she says things and thinks things that I related to. And I think so all the time sometimes. But the only difference between me and her is that I don't actually act upon those thoughts and those feelings where she does. So you know what I mean. So again, excellent book, Sweet Pea. There is a sequel to this book. This book was about 460, about 460 pages, which for me, is kind of long. But, it didn't strike me that way at all. It was one of those books that felt like, wow, that was 460 pages, because I just ripped right through it. But the sequel is about 300 and something pages. So I would highly suggest it if you like to read about bad girls, for sure, because Sweet Pea, or Rhiannon, is a very bad girl. Okay, so next book, Glimpse by Jonathan Mayberry. Now, some of you remember a video I did a couple weeks back called Harmony in My Head, and I talked about a book called Ink by Jonathan Mayberry, and I fell in love with that book. It was the first book I ever read by him. Well, he saw my video thanks to, again, my buddy Mark Tullius, and Jonathan Mayberry decided to contact me, and we have had some email exchange and Twitter exchange and Goodreads and YouTube exchange. So he sent me an autographed copy of his book Glimpse, because he suggested that if I liked Ink, I would probably like this book as well, because of the fact that two characters from Ink are also in this book. So I'm really going to quick read the synopsis for this book, which I usually don't like to do, but I kind of have to. So, 7 years an addict and 3 difficult years clean, Rain Thomas is racked by guilt for the baby she gave up for adoption at age 16. She's also still grieving the boy's father who died in Iraq. One morning, on the way to a much-needed job interview, she borrows reading glasses to review her resume. There is a small crack in one lens, and through that damaged slice of glass, she sees a young boy go running down the aisle of a subway train. Is he screaming with laughter or just screaming? When she tries to find the boy, he's gone, and no one has seen him. The day spins out of control. Rain loses chunks of time. She has no idea where her days have gone. The voices she hears are telling her horrible things, and even stranger things are happening. Unsure whether she's going insane, Rain sets out to find answers to long-buried questions about an earlier life she has avoided for years, in what may be the most dangerous collision of all, that between reality and nightmare. Okay, so I think the synopsis does a really good job of telling you what the book is going for here, right? And again, I'm not going to get too much into what happened. What I'm going to say, though, about this book is what I said before about Jonathan Mayberry and how much I love his writing. So those of you who like Stephen King, those of you who like Dean Koontz, those of you who like other horror writers out there, you would like Jonathan Mayberry if you haven't read anything by him yet. Now, he is responsible for V-Wars, which some of you might know from the Netflix series. He wrote that. He's wrote a whole plethora of books and different contributions to graphic novels, yada, 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 right? So this guy's got a phenomenal archive that I've just started dipping into, and I would highly suggest that you do too, because he is an excellent, excellent author. So this book, what I loved about it and what I love about Jonathan Mayberry's writing is that he writes about deeply, deeply flawed characters that you can totally relate to. These are not people who have perfect hair or perfect houses or perfect lives. They are just, kind of like these people that have had so much horrible history, and sometimes it comes back to creep up on them. Sometimes it comes back and it gives them almost supernatural powers. And usually it's to their detriment. Like, they don't really want it. And they just have to deal with it. So that alone always grabs my interest, because I love reading about flawed people, because I'm a flawed person for sure. So there you go. So you go down this journey with Rain and her friends, and they're all kind of experiencing the same thing, loss of time. And there's something called the shadow people, which is pretty interesting. So pick it up, read it. Jonathan Mayberry, Glimpse. Excellent read. All right, next book. Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. Okay, so some of you remember I did a review on The Girls in the Garden by Lisa Jewell, and I did not like that book, okay? But I did love The Family Upstairs, which is her, I believe, latest novel. And so I figured, well, hey, I love The Family Upstairs. Let's give another Lisa Jewell a try. I read The Girls in the Garden, didn't like it. But I didn't want to give up on her, because I know that if The Family Upstairs was as good as it was, then there's got to be more in her catalog that's just as good, or somewhere along there. So I read this and absolutely loved this book. Okay, so this book is told in 5 parts, and in each of those parts, it's told with a few different points of view. We'll just put it that way. And some of those points of view will surprise you. So I would definitely hang in there because the first two parts of the book are told from our protagonist, who is Laurel. Laurel has a daughter, Ellie, who at 15 years old went missing. And so we go 10 years forward and then 10 years back. So there's that past and present thing going on with the book. Um, Laurel is basically trying to pick up the pieces of her life after Ellie went missing. Her whole family just sort of disintegrated. She ended up getting divorced, and never has been able to let go of the idea that Ellie is still out there, until they do end up finding Ellie's remains. Now, I'm not giving anything away with that because that appears in the very first few chapters of the book. So, about 6 years after Ellie goes missing, they find her remains, and then that brings the family some closure, but it never really brings Laurel the closure as a mother that she needs. Um, so that's the premise of the book, is this woman who's trying to reconstruct her life, and after her daughter is gone missing, and kept up all these hopes that she would still be alive, and then finds out that she's not. But nobody knows what happened to her. So she ends up trying to build a life again. She starts dating this guy Floyd, an American. This takes place in the London area, I believe. I don't know exactly where it takes place, but it does take place in England. So you really feel for Laurel, you know, and this is what I love about Lisa Jewell's writing, and this is what I loved about The Family Upstairs. And she is able to um, sort of set all the moving parts of a book, right, in motion at the beginning. So it's not like she's setting you up for this incredible twist, even though there is a pretty great twist at the end of this book. But those parts that she sets in motion just keep you moving, and they take you on this incredibly dark, twisted journey, and you just want to keep going on this ride forever, you know, even though the book is only like 350 pages. So it had me hooked. This was a winner. Thank you, Lisa Jewell, because you definitely um, redeemed yourself, if you could say that, for me personally, which is a ridiculous thing to say because she is a phenomenal writer, and has a great body of work. But I was ready to give up on her after Girls in the Garden, but then I decided, no, I'm not going to do that because I know that there's a book out there by her that I'm going to love again. So I'm going to keep reading Lisa Jewell, and this was definitely a great book. Highly recommend. And another thing is I listened to this and read it, so the narration is amazing. I believe it's a actress named Helen Duff. She is phenomenal. There were a lot of different voices that she had to do. There were some dialects that she had to accomplish, and she executed those different accents and dialects and voices in an amazing way. So, bravo, Helen Duff. Great audiobook, great read, Lisa Jewell. Then she was gone. Okay. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was my plans for September. All right, so it's the last video probably I'm going to do for August. So going into September, I did state in my last video that I was going to be doing something completely different, which I am. So what I'm going to be doing for September is short story collections, novellas, and Audible original productions, because I've really gotten into them of recent, which are really cool to listen to because it's like listening to a play. So you have this totally different feel than you would if you were just listening to an audiobook. They're not all like that, of course. Some of them are actual books. If you have Audible, you know what I mean. And if you've listened to some Audible originals, you probably understand what I'm talking about. So I will be doing some of those, and I'll also be doing audiobook reviews as well, because I wanted to talk about how how me having ADD, right, and having such an incredibly short attention span, audiobooks have helped me so much to really get through certain books that are especially lengthy. And I'm going to actually talk about attention deficit disorder because I was diagnosed with it a long, long time ago as a kid and struggled with it, still struggle with it. So I wanted to do a segment on that at some point because I just wanted to share if there are those of you out there who have attention deficit disorder and struggle to read and you want to read, but you just have such a hard time with it. You have a hard time, focusing on a page and not having to read it 10 times over because your mind is going somewhere else and it's thinking of all of these other things, like, right? Anybody with attention deficit disorder suffers from. So I wanted to share some of my tips and tools and tricks that I use having attention deficit disorder that help me to read and help me to focus. Some point down the road in the future, I will be doing a attention deficit disorder and reading, maybe tutorial you could call it, or helpful, useful tips. Well, anyway, that does it for today. So if any of you have read any of these books at all, Sweet Pea, oops, Glimpse, or Then She Was Gone, please comment down below because I want to know. Dropped Sweet Pea. Oh, poor precious Sweet Pea. It's okay because I said before this book was unhauled by the Denver Public Library, and when I got it off of thrift books for like $3.99, and it's just completely like destroyed. So this book, like I said, was either absolutely adored and loved and used very much by the Denver Public Library, or somebody hated it and just chucked it about. But if you've read any of these books at all, please let me know. Comment down below. Tell me what you thought of them. I would also like your suggestions if you think I like Lisa Jewell, right? And I'm really starting to get into her books. Let me know which ones you've read that I haven't, because I've only read three. Family Upstairs, Girls in the Garden, and Then She Was Gone. If you've read Sweet Pea, please let me know what you think of it, because it is kind of an all across the board your review and rating book. So I want to see what you guys think, if any of you else have read it, because it was just amazing and hilarious. If you could, female serial killer and hilarity. I don't know. Do they equate? Maybe. It depends on the writing. Ah, there you go. Magic. And I will see you the next time on Books Yada Yada. Please subscribe.